Dear comic book industry, if you actually want to sell books to paying customers, stop listening to Twitter. Dynamite Entertainment confirmed with Bleeding Cool that Vampirella #1 has sold 130,000 copies. That is crazy, crazy good in today's market. That's absolutely going to put Vampirella in the top 10 most ordered books from Diamond in whatever month this comes out. I guess was it August? I'm sorry, July. It comes out July 17th. So this is coming from Bleeding Cool. This is interesting because Bleeding Cool was, I think, trying to tank orders on Vampirella by associating Ethan Van Sciver with Dynamite Entertainment, talking about Cyberfrog and Vampirella and trying to sort of, I think, poison the well a little bit because Bleeding Cool does not like Ethan Van Sciver very much. And, it continued on Twitter with Christopher Priest being attacked by Newsarama because he, God forbid, said that there were only two genders. He is a minister. He said there were two genders, and it was an offhanded remark. It was not meant to belittle anybody. And then we had other comic book professionals attacking Dynamite Entertainment, saying that they were courting alt-right groups, right? So the comic book industry, the comic book hive mind, and I can't even call these people the comic book industry, the fringe actors in the comic book industry, the loudmouths on Twitter were trying to tank Vampirella from the very beginning because of who was working on it. And lo and behold, they've sold 130,000 books. So we're going to get into this. This is coming from Rich Johnston. I did have to block the ads on your site, Rich, because I don't want to get a virus, and Bleeding Cool has a lot of really questionable ads. So I don't know if any subscription boxes are involved yet, because a lot of times comic book numbers are inflated because of subscription boxes. Or if mysterious comic conventions are buying 100,000 copies to get a headline. This is true too. There was a, I think it was Netflix tie-in. Apparently there was something going on there with that. So Dynamite aren't returning emails on that subject, but they have announced that the upcoming Vampirella #1 by Christopher Priest has pre-orders of 130,000. They do say that this number includes all orders through Diamond, specialty retailers, and creative exclusive covers. I think they're trying to say that Van Sciver bought a whole bunch of Vampirella comics or something, but that's not actually what happened. They have a breakdown from Dynamite below. So it marks the highest for a full-price comic in Dynamite's 15-year history, making this the best-selling Vampirella comic book of all time. Dynamite did make the first issue returnable for retailers. That's a huge thing. And we'll be doing the same for the second issue, which allows retailers to order high without risk, and also included some other covers. This is not enough to explain such a high number. Gosh, Bleeding Cool doesn't understand this. They don't understand that if you give the customers what they want, a lot of times they will support your company. And they don't seem to understand that right now, this Comicsgate thing is actually a lot bigger than they think it is. It's a lot bigger than they think it is. They keep trying to diminish it and say that it's just a handful of really loud, far-right, fringe-type people who are Comicsgate. But you look at the numbers of the campaigns. You look at Van Sciver's, what's he done? Over $1 million now on Cyberfrog. You look at the hundreds of thousands of dollars, Doug TenNapel is doing on Earthworm Jim. You look at the, what was it, $500,000 that the infamous Richard C. Meyer did on Jawbreakers. And you look at the numbers for Vampirella #1, and you tell me that this is a vocal minority, because I think that there are a lot more people on board with what the fringies on Twitter want to call Comicsgate than they want to admit, than what these blogs want to admit. Okay, this is the mainstream comic book, middle America comic book buying audience saying, yes, we want books like this. We want to support companies like this. So here we go. Here's an update from Nick. I think it's Nick Barucci from Dynamite Entertainment. He's provided a breakdown of the numbers. One subscription box company bought an exclusive and their order was under 2,000 units. So that's not where it came from. This is not a situation where we sold 100,000 copies to one account either. Okay, so they're not juggling the numbers. These actually sold to retailers and fans. It's a nice mix, a lot of modest and medium orders. It also has a nice mix of different retailers and creators who had faith to fit Vampirella into their promotions. Most orders were in the 1,000 unit range between creators who purchased 1,000 to 3,000 units each. It's a strong mix. So Van Sciver did not go out and buy 50 to 100,000 copies of Vampirella to make it look more successful than it was. He might have bought 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 units. There were almost 90,000 through Diamond. That is, you know, Marvel would be envious. Modern Marvel would be envious of these numbers. There were almost 90,000 through Diamond, with the breakdown being 70,000 standard orders through Diamond that are available to all retailers. Diamond also sold another 20,000 in exclusives, hence the 90,000 units. And the other 40,000 orders were, as stated above, mostly 1,000 units to 2,000 unit orders, with the exception of 3 orders, 2 creators who purchased 5,000 plus units and 1 retailer in the 5,000 range. The numbers may climb as we're still finalizing till tomorrow afternoon. So this is not a case of them juggling the numbers. They actually sold 130,000 copies of Vampirella at #1 by Christopher Priest at Dynamite, despite the screeching on the internet. Despite all the screeching on the internet, it actually encouraged people to vote with their wallets. It encouraged retailers to buy this book. I really think that's what's going on. This is the retailers. This is the middle America comic book buying audience saying these are the kinds of books, the kinds of products, and the kinds of publishers we want to support. Meanwhile, you see IDW. IDW is being flushed down the toilet. They had a good thing going and they got weirdly political. Their sales dropped off a cliff. They're fighting to survive. Like, IDW is holding on by their fingertips because they got really weird with politics. Now they're hiring, Vox reporters to write their comic books. They had the situation with Aubrey Sitterson on G.I. Joe a couple of years ago. Again, all these weird politics coming into play at IDW that have killed their sales. But Dynamite, who, believe it or not, put that crappy Rainbow Bright comic, which they thankfully canceled. Dynamite's like, hey guys, we're just going to put out a good comic book. We're going to put out a solid comic book. This is what the fans want. And we're not going to get political. And look at this. Look at this. We sold a shit ton of these comic books. We cannot express enough how appreciative we are for the support from fans, retailers, and support from retailers outside the direct market and talent who have created covers for their own sales, says Nick Barucci, Dynamite CEO and publisher. We knew we had a great creative team on this title, with the incredible Christopher Priest being complemented by the lush art of, I think it's Ergun Gunduz, I can't even pronounce his name, and I'm sorry, EG. The lush art of EG, and breathtaking covers to match. The 50th anniversary will only happen once, so everything had to be perfect. Everyone from the creative team, editorial, and sales and marketing worked hard together at all levels to make this a success. It's incredibly gratifying to get such a welcoming response back. And they also tease that one of the greatest comic artists of all time will bow out with the Vampirella cover. Could it be George Perez? That would be really interesting. Again, this, I don't know what else to say. I mean, I've done videos before on, independent comic book creators who are making Marvel and DC look very, very bad. And the comic book media attacks these creators because they don't agree with the politics or the fact that these creators won't get, involved in politics. They just want to make indie comics, and they're making hundreds of thousands of dollars. They're killing it, but you're not going to hear about it. They did cover Doug TenNapel's Earthworm Jim campaign, which is at like $300 and some thousand right now, but they made sure that you knew Doug TenNapel was an awful person. That should have no bearing on how well his comic books sold. And if you're really interested just in numbers, there are people out there pulling ridiculously good numbers on comics, but you're not hearing about because they're not part of this inner circle, this cabal of comic book blogs and tastemakers and fringies who are trying to, get these companies to pull creatives off of books because they may or may not have said something they didn't like on Twitter. It's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, I did retweet this from Blake Northcott earlier today, and I agree with this. Ignore the 13 shrieking critics, and that's really all it is. There's not very many people, and they're mostly on Twitter. They're quarantined to Twitter, and like IDW and possibly Lion Forge, which now had to merge with Oni just to survive. listen to 130,000 customers. It's a wake-up call. The same crazies who protested Vampirella #1 will try to derail something new tomorrow. That's true. You'll never make them happy, but ignoring them paid off. And that's just it. I mean, that is it. That is it. At the end of the day, the comic book industry worried too much about what people on Twitter and Tumblr thought. And you shouldn't do that, because these people are not interested in making money. They're not interested in making money. They're interested in causing drama and using the comic book platform, blogs, etc., to push political agendas. They're not interested in the financial health of the comic book industry. And if you're interested in actually making a living in comics, why would you listen to these people? They don't have the industry's best interests in mind. They don't have your best interests in mind. They want to tank the comic book industry, and then they'll just move on to something else, right? Because it's all about politics. It's all about activism. And there's a time and a place for that. But when you're trying to keep a business going, sometimes you got to separate your personal opinions from your business persona and just move books. So there is a comic book industry for everybody. Everybody, and that includes the people you don't agree with, right? If you yourself want to work in comics, then you're probably going to have to let people who you don't agree with also work in the comic book industry. But the goal for everybody, the goal for everyone should be to see the comic book industry pull out of this tailspin it's been in for years, and be able to salvage something from it, and for the people who really want to make comics for a living, who have the skill set to make comics for a living, to be able to do that. And that is a pretty good goal, I think. But again, don't take advice from people who don't really care if the comic book industry lives or dies, that they just want to use it as a platform. Don't listen to Twitter. IDW, you could have pulled out 2-3 years ago if you'd stopped hiring people who were activists before they were business-minded people who had activism on their mind before money, and they weren't interested in creating books that sold. They were just interested in scoring some woke points on Twitter and Tumblr. That's not a way to run a business. So IDW will probably be gone within the next year or two completely, and Dynamite Entertainment is going to rise up, I think. 90,000 books even in Diamond, that's ridiculously good. I think they actually have a future ahead of them. Companies like Alterna have a future ahead of them. Some other companies, they've actually done a 180 and been like, yeah, we got to get back to selling comics, get in the business of selling comic books. They'll probably be fine, because there's always going to be a market for comic books in the collector's market, with certain people that just want a quality product without the politics. IDW is going to be toast. I think Oni and Lionforge, I think they're probably going to be toast too. They had to merge just to survive. I think we're going to see some other casualties as the direct market continues to shrink. And now the graphic novel market is not going to be doing so well either, with bookstores closing and all of that stuff going on. So it's going to be interesting to watch what happens to comics. But I think the people who are business-minded first, who actually want to create comics and sell comics to the most amount of people that they can, they're going to be the ones who survive this shakedown. Hey guys, thanks for watching Clownfish TV. Please consider supporting the channel. Go to clownfishsupport.com. That's clownfishsupport.com. And if you want to join our community, go to clownfishtalk.com. That's clownfishtalk.com. Please subscribe, ring the bell for notifications. We will talk to you next time.